Okay, so get this right, America. It's less land of the free and a lot more like, you know, three developing countries all crammed into like a really expensive suit. Ha ha.
Sound about right.
At least that's how one Redditor put it. And honestly, after, spending some time with this thread, I can kind of see where they're coming from.
Yeah.
We're going deep on the internet's reaction to this Florida judge. He denied a schoolgirl an abortion, said she wasn't mature enough.
It's a wild case.
Yeah.
It really brings up a lot of different opinions about teenage pregnancy, abortion rights, all in the age of the internet. Really makes you think about America in general, you know?
Definitely a tightrope walk, this topic.
Oh, for sure.
Super emotionally charged, strong opinions everywhere.
Yeah.
We just want to, show all the different points of view that are in this Reddit thread.
Right, just lay it all out without adding our own 2 cents. Like, think of us as your guides through this online battlefield of ideas. We'll point out the main arguments,
Yeah.
the vibe, the emotions of this really complicated issue.
So, okay, the one that like blew up the internet, it all started with a schoolgirl in Florida. She was trying to get an abortion.
Right.
Sounds simple enough, right?
It's like it.
But then the judge, he throws this curveball, says the girl's not mature enough to make this choice.
And that one word, immature, oh boy. It's like someone threw a match on a pile of tinder. Everyone's got an opinion on that.
Yeah, like it's open season on teenage decision-making, which, come on, most adults I know are still figuring that out.
Totally. And you see that irony all over the thread. People are like, hold on, if a teenager is too immature for an abortion, how are they suddenly mature enough to, raise a kid?
Right.
It's like, by denying her this choice, the judge basically forced her into 18 years of huge life decisions.
That's a really good point. Like, did anyone even ask the girl what she wanted? It's her life, her body, her future. And that actually brings up something else someone said that I thought was really interesting. Judges, they're just people too.
They are, definitely.
They have their biases, their experiences that color how they see things.
It's easy to forget that, right? We put judges up on this pedestal, expect them to be these, like, robots of justice, totally impartial.
For sure.
But they get hungry, they have bad days, they're human. There's actually this study, I don't know if you've heard of this one, but it showed that judges give harsher sentences right before lunch.
Seriously?
Yeah, like even an empty stomach can affect a legal decision.
Wow. Makes you think twice. But this whole thing about judges having biases, it's not just about teenagers in courts. This is where the Reddit thread goes from 0 to 60. It goes way beyond this one case, It becomes this whole commentary on American politics, society, everything.
Yeah, the judge's decision, the words he used, it's like a mini version of this bigger thing happening in the U.S. A lot of people see it as a threat to women's rights, especially.
And that's when you start seeing the comments comparing everything to dystopian novels, which is never a good sign.
Right.
Like, it's bad when Handmaid's Tale, 1984, that's what people are comparing their country to. Like, this fear that fiction is becoming reality, especially for women.
And it's not just Americans noticing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of comments from people in other countries, they're just, like, shocked.
Mm-hmm.
One comment was just like, what in the actual FUCK even is the USA?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's like watching a car crash in slow motion. Everyone else is rubbernecking, like, how did they even get there?
And a lot of those international comments, they focus on this idea that America is declining. The infrastructure is crumbling. Politics are totally divided. Religion is getting mixed up in lawmaking. It's like they're watching an empire collapse.
Remember that quote, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it fell in one.
Reading these comments, you really start to get that feeling.
Yeah, you do.
It's kind of scary when you think about it.
Yeah.
Definitely. And that's what's so interesting about seeing this global perspective. This case, the reactions, it shows how differently things are in different parts of the world, socially, politically. But hey, it's not all doom and gloom.
Sure.
Even with all the negativity, there are these glimmers of hope, people saying, do this, calls to action.
Yeah, like that one user telling everyone in Florida to vote on Amendment 4, which, just so everyone knows, is directly about abortion rights. It's a good reminder that even when it feels like, everything's stacked against you, there are still people fighting, trying to make things better, encouraging others to get involved, use their voices.
Absolutely. And it's those little calls to action, those little sparks of resistance That's where you start to see the real human impact. You move past the legal stuff, the politics, and it's about real people, real lives that are being affected.
For sure. And those personal stories that people share in the thread, they make this whole thing real in a way that headlines and laws just can't.
Yeah, it's easy to forget there are actual people behind all of this. Like you were saying, those stories, those are what make it real.
It's so easy to get sucked into the online arguments, the funny comebacks, all that. But then you read someone's personal story and it hits you like a ton of bricks.
For sure.
There's this one comment I'm thinking of. This woman was saying how her doctor wouldn't give her birth control.
Oh, wow.
Said she was too immature.
It's unbelievable how often that happens.
Yeah.
These political debates have real consequences.
Exactly.
And it always seems to be the people who aren't actually making the decisions that are the most affected.
It's like those debates are happening in some other universe.
Totally.
And that actually makes me think of another big part of this whole conversation, social media.
Yes.
One of the comments pointed out something really interesting, how other countries like Russia and China, they might be using our thing with free speech against us.
Yeah, using social media especially.
Right, like using it to push their own agendas.
It's kind of creepy when you think about it. Like the things we love about the internet, openness, sharing ideas that could be used against us.
Exactly.
And you have to think about echo chambers too, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We get stuck in these bubbles online, only seeing stuff we already agree with.
Mm.
It's harder and harder to see the other side or just have a normal conversation,
It's like everyone's yelling and no one's listening.
Exactly.
And then you go further down this Reddit thread and you get to the more out there ideas.
Yes, the conspiracy theories.
Exactly, like people saying Republicans are trying to create a slave class by forcing births, or that infertile couples are behind the whole anti-abortion movement just so they can adopt.
Yeah, we have to be careful with that kind of stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
We don't want to spread misinformation, but it is interesting where those theories come from.
Right, like what makes people believe that stuff?
A lot of times it's because people are scared or they don't trust the government or the media.
That's a good point.
Like that slave class theory. It's obviously not true, but it shows that people are worried about inequality and exploitation, which are real issues.
Totally. It's like even the craziest ideas can have a grain of truth to them.
Right, and it's our job to figure out what's real and what's not, especially online.
It's like they say, trust but verify.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You always have to think critically, especially in the digital age. It's so easy to get caught up in all the drama.
Totally. But even with all the noise and the conspiracies, there are still those glimmers of hope, like people trying to do some good.
Oh, for sure. Those little rays of light.
Yeah, and those calls to action I mentioned earlier.
It's what makes this whole thing worth talking about.
Definitely. And that brings us to one of the biggest questions that came up in the thread. It's something that really stuck with me.
Yeah. What's that?
What if the judge in this case had been a woman? It makes you wonder, right?
For sure.
Like, would a woman in that position, would she have seen things differently?
It's possible.
Maybe she would have thought about her own experiences, or what it's like for girls and women in this world.
Yeah, it really shows you how much our own lives, our beliefs, even when you're supposed to be objective like a judge, it all comes into play.
It's like that saying, right?
Yeah.
We don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are.
Exactly.
And that's huge, right? Like we all have our own biases. And that's not just about law and stuff. That's everything.
Totally.
Yeah.
And realizing that everyone has a different point of view. I mean, that's what this whole deep dive has been about, really.
Yeah.
Being open to different perspectives.
Yeah.
Recognizing that these are complicated issues.
Yeah.
And remembering that there are real people at the heart of it all.
Absolutely. Like there's a whole story behind every comment, every article, every court case, real people, real emotions.
And we have to, try to understand that even when we disagree.
So yeah, next time you're like scrolling through the comments, think about this conversation.
Yeah, take a step back.
Take a breath, think about where everyone's coming from, and try to be, more curious and less judgmental.
Because honestly, you never know where you'll find some real wisdom, some real insight, even in the most random places.
Yeah, for sure.
And maybe, just maybe, if we all do that a little more, listen a little more, we can start to, bridge some of these divides we keep seeing. Online, offline, everywhere.
That would be amazing.